Waruna Wajrāsana.
The undefiable Dhamma.
If everything comes to fall, how does the kammic energy stand its ground? We have received this question. I have heard that every fabricated thing comes to fall without a moment's delay, but the kammic energy stands its ground persistently for eons, transpiring its consequences. Now we are incurred with this problem only because of this impermanence nonsense. They even ignored the saying Nāma-gottaṃ na-jirati, which means that the Nāma-gotta is not subject to deterioration. Nāma-gotta, or mental memory records, too is a part of jati. When all things are taken as subject to perpetual alteration, we are incurred with this problem. Lord Buddha pointed out certain phenomena that would not remain unaltered with time. The sense objects or physical phenomena, sensations, perceptions, mental fabrications, consciousness, all disintegrate within a moment of their respective arising. The eye, ear, nose, tongue, body all disintegrate within a moment of their respective arising. Even the mind disintegrates in a subtle manner. Every phenomenon that comes within the purview of the mind disintegrates within a moment. What happens when they disintegrate each moment? Nāma-gottaṃ na-jirati. Nāma-gotta is not subject to deterioration. As a result, anything that was previously disintegrated can be recalled back to memory. The disintegration of past sense objects or physical phenomena can be recalled back to memory. The encountering and disintegration of the past sensations and perceptions can be recalled back to memory. Past thoughts, words, and actions can be recalled. They are history all right, but they can be recalled back to memory. The thinking of past thoughts too can be recalled. Nāma-gotta did not disintegrate. They can be recalled. However, the thoughts involved with recalling would disintegrate. This is the disintegrating side of the worldly phenomena described in Buddhism. If we are to yield pleasure or āsvāda from the physical phenomena, sensations, perceptions, mental fabrications, and consciousness, they have to be recalled and mentally fabricated to yield pleasure. Whatever past phenomena would not yield pleasure, when they are recalled and mentally fabricated, pleasure is generated. Even the pleasure generated as such falls apart. Despite our efforts to keep them intact, they would not by their nature. To enjoy pleasure, they have to be fabricated with struggle and effort. The fabricated pleasure wastes away then and there. One cannot hold it intact. Therefore, if one is able to see the futility of the pleasure and blind infatuation or chandaraga, he would pursue nirvana. What is included within the term siyalla, or everything, as described by the Lord Buddha? Within the Buddhist practice, the arising of any eye, visual object, ear, sound, nose, odor, tongue, flavor, body, touch, mind, mental objects is considered as siyalla, or everything. Reflect on the anicca, dukkha, anatta of everything. Anicca means the inappropriate, unfulfilling, unsatisfactory nature, as well as the fact that things not being to one's liking. Dukkha means the punishing, grueling nature of things that leads to suffering. Anatta means futile, devoid of non-essence, and unworthy nature of owning things. Anicca has nothing to do with impermanence. All these unwanted arguments cropped up because of this impermanence nonsense. Let it be permanent or impermanent. If something causes suffering, that would not be appropriate to associate with. Why so? All fabricated arisings always end up with decay, death, grief, lamentation, physical pain, mental pain, and fatigue. Beyond that, if there would not be any appeasement, all fabricated arisings would be inappropriate, or they would be subject to anicca. They fabricate nothing but suffering. In search of appeasement, sentient beings are caught up in immense suffering. If this is the case with every fabricated thing, what is the use of considering them as of essence? They are inappropriate, leads to suffering, and is of no essence. If the worldly phenomena are of this nature, if they are adored and pursued, it would inevitably lead to suffering, and no appeasement can ever be expected. If they are not adored and not pursued, it is possible to be emancipated from them. With that, one can be liberated from suffering. So, one should reflect on the anicca, dukkha, and anatta of the worldly phenomena with sharpened wisdom. When the non-essence of the fabricated things are understood, it is possible to be freed from blind infatuation, effecting disenchantment, dispassion, and emancipation. Thereby, the noble path is accomplished with the attainment of nirvana. This is the teaching of the Lord Buddha that we need to grasp. Because we have deviated from this teaching, we are lost in useless arguments. The Kammic energy is a part of Dhamma, that are a part of the Nāma-gota. Sabbe Dhamma anattati. All phenomena are subject to non-essence. The teaching is to see all worldly phenomena as having no essence whatsoever. Suppose there is a past demeritorious deed which has not yielded its consequences as yet. It is supposed to be actualized someday. So, is it of essence or not? It is of no essence. Similarly, suppose that there is a meritorious energy that has the potential to yield the consequences of the meritorious deed. If this energy is activated, it would yield a rebirth in a fortunate realm. That life would come to an end along with the exhaustion of that Kammic energy. After that, it is possible for a rebirth in an unfortunate realm to occur. Objectively, there would be no substance achieved at the end of the lifetime in the fortunate realm. The rebirth in the fortunate realm wastes away towards its eventual demise. The only thing left would be the grief, lamentation, physical pain, mental pain, and fatigue resulting from the decay and death of the fortunate rebirth. Accordingly, we are inherited with lots of such Kammic seeds which could actualize any time in this samsaric journey. These aggregates of Kammic seeds are not of any substance, and it does not yield anything good. This is described in the phrase Sabbe Dhamma anattati. Lord Buddha never preached on impermanence. This is a concept of the Brahmins who carried on Vedic studies. Whether something is permanent or not is not our concern. We need to be liberated from Siyalla, or everything. Who has ever attained nirvana by obliterating Namagata? A rightly awakened Buddha, a Pacceka Buddha, or an Arahant would have attained nirvana with enlightened understanding. If they ever look into the past with the knowledge of recollection of past events, it is possible to see how individuals attain parinirvana, what their names were, what is the name of the Lord Buddha under consideration, and the names of the disciples, and so on. It is possible to see how they preached to the disciples, how they led their lives, how they attained parinirvana when they attained parinirvana. It is possible to know all these by tracing them along the Namagata. With the knowledge of the recollection of past events, for example, it is possible to see the life of the Arahant Sariputta, how he was one of the main disciples of the Lord Buddha, his birthplace, his parents, his whereabouts, etc. When we trace along the lineage of Namagata, we can observe all these events. The Arahant Sariputta has already attained parinirvana, but his lineage of Namagata still stands. It is possible to access them with the knowledge of recollection of past events. A rightly awakened Buddha, a Pacceka Buddha, or an Arahant with the knowledge of recollection of past events is able to know the details of the past lives of the Arahant Sariputta, the details of Kolita and Upatissa, the meritorious deed that would have contributed to the birth in their respective families. All these details can be observed. When referred, it is possible to see all the details, tracing along the lineage of Namagata. The lineage of Namagata is there in the mental world, but that does not drive the progression of the samsaric journey. However, if they are bound to with blind infatuation, considering them to be admirable, they would continue to yield suffering. Even if fully renounced, the Namagata can never be obliterated. Owing to the presence of the Namagata, our Lord Buddha was able to see the past Lord Buddhas, how they proclaimed the Niyata Vivarana, or definite foresightings, of being able to become a Lord Buddha. He could see his past lives. The Namagata were never emptied, but they possess no substance. Their presence would not contribute to our liberation. If something facilitates a liberation from suffering, one should make use of that to get rid of suffering. This is the core of Buddhism. Buddhism does not concern with if the worldly phenomena are impermanent or not. Both aspects are irrelevant. Suppose you see a pile of dog excrement. If it is impermanent, would it lead to suffering? Or else, if it is permanent, would it lead to happiness? Think thoroughly about this impermanence nonsense. The pile of dog excrement is so gross, it smells so bad. We would not think twice if it were permanent or not before removing it from sight at the first instance possible. Permanent or not, the awful smell would linger, even after knowing that it is impermanent. What we need to know is that it is dirty, and it should be removed immediately. If we are to associate with it, we would smell bad ourselves. If we were to remove it, we would be safe from the bad smell. Similarly, there is a samsaric journey, which is nothing but a pile of filth. It is subject to anicca, dukkha, anatta. If we are to associate with it, the suffering is fabricated, as opposed to the appeasement that we are expecting to find. We would be stricken with discomfort. If the pile of filth is set aside, we would be able to be freed from it. We are bound to it because of the blind infatuation. If the blind infatuation is set aside, we would be freed. We should not trouble ourselves with the problem of its permanence or impermanence. The meaning of the word anicca has been replaced with the Sanskrit word anitya. The argument over the permanence and impermanence is at the base of these Vedic religions of the Brahmins. The permanence was referred to as eternalism and the impermanence as nihilism. There were two schools of thought focusing on eternalism and nihilism. Based on these two modes of speculation, 62 views were made up. They associated with the eternalism and nihilism. There were 48 wrong views categorized under eternalism and 14 under nihilism. In total, there were 62 wrong views. All 62 wrong views are concerned with the existential view and non-existential view. Ete te bhikkhave ubo ante anupagamma majjhima patipada tathagatena abhisambuddha. The practice that does not go to either of these two extremes, bhikkhus, is a medium, awoken by the Perfect One through his great insight. What are these extremes concerned with? One is concerned with the Kāmasukkallikāna Yoga and the other one with the Atthakilamatthana Yoga. All 62 wrong views belong to these two extremes. Existential view and non-existential view are related to these extremes. Leave out both extremes. Both extremes are of no substance. Look at the phenomena that are of essence and that are not. What sort of phenomena are related to the noble path? You would realize that the worldly phenomena are of no essence and that nirvana is of essence. The noble path becomes revealed, the path that has to be associated with. It is this path that was obscured with Sanskrit words. Sanskrit means fabricated. Understand clearly. Anicca, Anatma, they are not even Sinhala words, no Magadhi. They are two words from the fabricated language called Sanskrit. Dukkha too is a Sanskrit word, but since it is difficult to pronounce, it is pronounced dukkha. Dukkha is a Pali term. Dukkha is Sanskrit. Dukkha is the Sinhala term. Since dukkha is difficult to pronounce, the Pali term dukkha is used. It too was fabricated and was meant to be dukkha, but the Pali term dukkha is used somehow. 3 Sanskrit terms have been given as anitya, dukkha, anatma to conceal the 3 characteristics of existence or tilakkhuna. Even the word tilakkhuna has been replaced with the Sanskrit term trilakshana, which means the 3 characteristics. Everything was written in Sanskrit and given to us to follow. With Sanskrit, the Dhamma meanings of the Sinhala terms were obscured. With that, it has become very difficult to distinguish between the Sinhala and Sanskrit terms. Since the Sanskrit language is still in existence, it is possible to compare the singular words with Sanskrit. And with time, one would also acquire the ability to insightfully distinguish between singular, Sanskrit and Magadha terms. It would be possible to separate a certain word into different sounds and then attach separate meanings to them to extract the underlying meaning of the word. With that, we would be able to identify what is meaningful and what is not. The inappropriateness and the punishing nature of things make them non-reassuring. With that, the reality becomes apparent. These are misperceptions. The word lakuna means the taints in the heart. Anicca, dukkha, anatta refer to three types of taints in the heart, or misperceptions of taking anicca, dukkha, anatta things as things of nicca, sukha, atta. With the singular words, it is possible to go deep and identify the exact Dhamma message the words are carrying. With that, the correct Dhamma message would be conveyed without distortions. When the wording is distorted with the Sanskrit language, the Dhamma message gets distorted. Sanskrit is a fabricated language that is governed by fabricated rules as opposed to a natural language. The set of rules in the language conceals the Dhamma message. One cannot think beyond the set of rules. The Tilakunu had been concealed in this way. But with the Sinhalese words, the correct meanings can be clarified easily. We need to understand what are included within everything that is fabricated, and what their Nāma-gota are. The sense objects of physical phenomena, sensations, perceptions, mental fabrications, and consciousness got fabricated in the past, and they disintegrated. The sense objects, sensations, perceptions, mental fabrications, and consciousness are being fabricated in the present. The sense objects, sensations, perceptions, mental fabrications, and consciousness will be fabricated in the future as well. These are included within everything. It is not possible to say that everything got fabricated and got disintegrated or been disintegrated. Within everything, a part got disintegrated already. A part is being fabricated and disintegrated. There will be another part that will fabricate and disintegrate in the future. When we consider all these that are within the scope of the 5 aggregates of clinging, there are 3 parts relating to the past, present, and future. Before commenting that everything has the characteristic of falling apart, we need to get these different parts distinguished first. As pointed out by the Lord Buddha, within the Buddhist practice, the eye, visual object, ear, sound, nose, odor, tongue, flavor, body, touch, mind, mental objects are considered as siyalla, or everything. There are certain things that is coming under everything in accordance with the Buddhist practice. There is another deep meaning within the word siyalla. Siya means self, alla means palm, alla gannawa means grasp or grab. So siyalla means everything held dear as me and mine. As long as everything held dear is around, we are bound to what we call me and mine. If that beloved view is dispelled, we would be liberated from them. It does not matter if they exist or not. For any effect to arise, there has to be a cause. If the cause is ceased from arising, the related effect too would cease to arise. If the arising of a certain effect leads to suffering, and if its cause is removed, so would the suffering. If the way to effect that is the noble path, follow the noble path to be freed from suffering. Hetum paticca sambhutam, hetu bhanga nirujjati. If the causes are matched in a congruent manner, the related effect would be manifested. If such causes are not standing, so would the related effect. There is a certain part of phenomena which is activated in the form of resultant arisings, or vipaka. When the conducive environment, or samanantara, is arranged, the causes that have been fabricated in the past, or anantara, draws in to form resultant arisings. The causes that have been fabricated in the past are stored alongside the namagata. The required features come in the form of karma results. Suppose a farmer stores the harvested grains in the attic. Say he has mustard seeds, mung beans, and green beans in his attic. On one side of the attic, there are some paddy seeds as well, and other types of grains too. He takes a few grains of each variety. He prepares the land as a paddy field. He plants some mustard seeds. But will they sprout? Will the green beans sprout in the paddy field? Only paddy will sprout there. None of the other types of grains will sprout in the paddy field. Suppose he prepares some plant beds, and he plants those seeds. What types of seeds will sprout there? If the soil compound is appropriate for the germination of certain seeds, they will sprout. Paddy seeds are not fitting to the plant beds. They need muddy soil. Not everything matches every environment. Each arising has its conducive environment. Suppose we place a green bean on the soil rather than inside the soil. The ants would come and eat it after some time. The green bean needs some protection from the environment. As for the mustard seeds, on the other hand, because of their tangy taste, the insects will not eat them. They will sprout after some time, as it has its conducive environment. Similarly, when we are reborn in a certain realm, the karma results that has the potential to arise within that realm would actualize. If the conducive environment is not presented, the related karma results would be deferred for some other time, and they remain dormant for the time being. So until the time is right, they are stored in the vijñāna dhātu that are residing alongside Namagota. There are the elements of Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu, Akasa, and Vijñāna. It is inside this vijñāna dhātu that Kammic energy reside. They remain dormant until the conducive environment is activated, in which case they would be drawn in to be manifested in the form of the resultant arisings. It does not matter if they exist or not. If something leads to suffering, there is a cause for the suffering. And if the cause is ceased from arising, so would the suffering. With this knowledge, follow the path that would facilitate the cessation of suffering from arising, to be freed from suffering for good. This is the noble path which grants the appeasement, thoroughly
Waharaka Thera Waruna Wajrāsana.
the undefilable Dhamma.